Donna.
Public is on. Waiting for the stream. We're live.
All right. Good evening, folks. Welcome to a special meeting of the City Council. And let's get the show going.
You want me to do the pledge?
No.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I had to two windows popped up. I had to get rid of.
Not yet.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the special meeting of the Council of the City of Long Beach held Tuesday, May 11th, 2021 at 7 p.m. We have a roll call. Councilmember Delury.
Present.
Councilmember Mandel.
Present.
Councilmember Treston.
Present.
Vice President McGinnis.
Present.
President Bendo.
Present.
Let the record indicate the presence of City Manager Donna Gaden and Deputy Corporation Counsel Richard Berrios. We'll now have a salute to the flag.
Commissioner Walsh, would you please lead us?
Sure. Everybody right hand, cross your heart, please.
Okay.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Before we get started, we have an item that's to be added by unanimous consent. It was posted up and sent around this afternoon. It is a resolution honoring the members of the Long Beach Police Department. So for unanimous consent, I just need to do a roll call for this. Councilmember Delury,
Yes.
Councilmember Mandel,
Yes.
Councilmember Treston,
Yes.
Vice President McGinnis,
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So why don't we get to that one? So
Okay, we're going to call out of order. We're going to call the regular calendar item, which is a resolution honoring the members of the Long Beach Police Department.
okay. And I guess Commissioner Walsh is going to talk about that.
Sure. This is National Police Week here in the United States, and May 15th is actually Law Enforcement Officers Day, and this year, unfortunately, we have a staggering 264 police officers that were killed in the line of duty. It's one of the highest totals in the history of the United States. You have to go back to 1974 to reach that number. That represents about a 96% increase in law enforcement officer death year over year. Unfortunately, that number is going to rise because we have another 70 or 80 officer deaths that are still being certified as line of duty due to the COVID-19 virus. 2020 then would become the deadliest year for law enforcement in the history of the United States, with the potential for up to 344 officers having been killed in the line of duty. You'd have to go back to 1930, where 307 officers were killed in the line of duty to get such a dreadful count. On average, our fallen brethren were only 47 years old when they were killed in the line of duty, and they left behind, on average, 2 children each. We lost 48 officers to gun violence and 44 to traffic-related fatalities. And overall, there are over 22,217 names on the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. They date all the way back to 1786, which was the first year that an officer actually was killed in the line of duty on record. I'd like to say that police officers are not paid for what they do every day. We're paid for what we may have to do on any given day. And in 2020, law enforcement officers faced a global pandemic, being called, as we all know, to provide aid to countless COVID-19 victims. Really, in selfless acts of bravery and service, they risked infection themselves and in bringing home the deadly virus to their family, friends, and loved ones. And COVID-19 affected my life personally, as it took my father's life on December 7th when he contracted the disease while still working as a public safety officer for Nassau County. The money that police officers get paid is not the real motivation for their dedication. It's the call to duty, really, the nobility for our shared profession, and the understanding that we're part of something that is really much larger than ourselves. So on behalf of the Long Beach Police Department, I want to express our sincerest thanks and gratitude to the city council and to the entire Long Beach community for recognizing all law enforcement officers tonight and this week, but especially the officers of the city who each and every day work diligently to ensure our safety and our security and provide the level of service only found in the greatest of professions. So thank you very much for this honor. You're still muted, John.
All right. Thank you, Ron, for that.
Thank you.
So Dave, why don't we go ahead and call this and vote on it?
Any comments?
Well,
from-
I guess, yeah, sorry. Yeah, do we have any comments from the council? Seeing none, I think Commissioner Walsh expressed it best for all of us. So let's see if we have any comments from the public.
No hands raised.
Okay. Now we can,
Okay, so we're going to call
Call
the
the
vote
item.
on item number 1 is a resolution honoring the members of the Long Beach Police Department. Who will introduce and move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second,
I will.
voting, Councilmember Delory,
Yes.
Councilmember Mandel,
Yes.
Councilmember Treston,
Yes.
Vice President McGinnis,
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Okay. Our next item is the public hearing for the purpose of giving citizens an adequate opportunity to publicly present their views on the general summary of the proposed budget for the year July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
All right. So this is a continuation from the hearing from the last meeting. I guess before we go on, as the city manager, if we have anything to add?
Yes, do you have the PowerPoint, Dave, from Ina? And Ina's going to speak?
Yes, I'm just moving her up to the panel and I do have it queued up.
Okay, thank you.
Is that Ina?
Yes, you
It's
ready?
Ina.
Okay, you want to put the PowerPoint up, Dave?
Yep, hang on one second.
Okay. And I just want to say, if anybody is wondering why we're just now going over the PowerPoint, and we didn't put it up for review, Ina and I was working up till 6 o'clock on this PowerPoint and working on some numbers, which I think people will be happy. So that is why it was not up prior to this meeting. Okay, the floor is yours, Ina.
Okay, thank you. This is an update to the budget overview. It will be short and hopefully sweet. During the presentation last week, we talked about the budget process being a dynamic process and the assumptions being constantly reevaluated. And based on the most recent assumptions for the beach revenue, our projections for the overall beach revenue had changed, which in turn will mean a change to the overall tax levy. It was very public and in the media that the city officials, county officials worked diligently and tirelessly with the state to lobby for 100% capacity at our beaches. At this point today, we feel that it's doable, and projections for beach capacity increased to 100% from proposed budget. Not 100% by 100%, but to 100%. This will allow beach park access to non-residents at 100% demand. Dave, I'm sorry, would you mind moving it to, yes, thank you. This will allow beach park access to non-residents at 100% demand, which is assumed at 100% of 2019, summer 2019 level. This in turn will increase projected beach revenue and will reduce size of fiscal year 2022 tax levy and necessary increase in tax rates. And that 100%, which is increased from 75% assumed in the budget, will provide additional almost $700,000. Dave, next page, please. So that reduction in tax levy in an amount of $696,000 will result in total levy of about $49.8 million. That's a reduction from about $50.5 million in a proposed budget, which will in turn will mean that the homestead taxes will increase by 4.92% and non-homestead will increase by 10.77%. That's a rate of 21% on homestead and 30% on assessed value, and non-homestead of 34%. Average tax increase for median assessed value house will be at about $207. So if this assumption of 100% capacity will hold until next Tuesday, we will be able to incorporate it into a RADA shed and incorporate it into the final proposed budget, adopted budget. Okay, next slide, please, Dave. I wanted to briefly address questions that were asked last time about the increases in salaries adjustments, grade changes that took place during fiscal 21. So when you're comparing 2021 budget to 2022 budget, what's not evident in the budget numbers are all those transactions, personal transactions that took place during fiscal 2021, right? Changes to the budget. So they may seem like new increases and proposed increases, but I just wanted to make sure that those changes that already been incorporated into the operating budget of this fiscal year, and they are basically our starting point as of now, that I communicate them to the city council and to the public. Those are just few that are listed on this slide. We can go more into it, but I thought those would be the ones that are of the utmost concern, because these are all exempt positions. So city manager department, city manager salary was increased effective September 1st. Controller's department, deputy controller, that's a position that, while in theory it's not new, the city controller's department had always had a second professional accountant in a department up until recently, up until when it didn't have any professional staff at all. But we hired the CPA in March of 2021. So compared to 2021 budget, that seems like an increase, but it's not a new position. Recreation department, also there was a change in salaries effective February 2021. So that's not something that is new for next fiscal year. And corporation council, it's also position that existed in above. The city always had a corporation council. It's just changes in the department and attrition and transition. So we currently have a deputy corporation counsel who is an acting corporation counsel. And that really concludes my presentation. I promised it will be short.
I wanted to bring up why we put this particular slide in. I think it was Eileen that brought up last meeting about all of these new positions. And then someone brought up at the end about a lot of new positions. And when Ina and I spoke after that, I said, you know, these positions were not budgeted for in last year's budget. So when people look at the new budget, they're thinking that we are adding new positions when we're actually not. Those positions, those people are already here. So it was important so that people will know that the positions that we have been talking about, it was only, I believe, 3 to 4 new positions that we talked about that we showed last time to add. So we'll take any questions from the council.
All right, I think one thing that Ina was a little modest about that's worth reiterating is that the tax levy is being reduced by almost 1.5%. So we're going from 6.3 down to 4.92, which is a pretty significant drop in the tax levy increase. So that's good job. Good job. That's a good for the taxpayers. So thanks for sharpening that pencil. And with that, I guess I'll see if the council has any questions. All right, seeing none. Dave, what do we got from the public?
Okay, first is Roy Lester.
Okay.
Go ahead, Roy.
Okay. John, we're still going to be over the cap, won't we?
Yes.
Okay. I understand the new positions that we're putting in, and they're not really new, but we seem to have gotten along without them. So it's just, I wish we could keep getting along without them. I do have some questions though. How come, like the tax assessor's office, the overtime in 2018 was $297, and this year we're budgeting $17,500 for tax assessor? Why does the tax assessor need overtime?
Is that your only question, or do you want
No.
to?
No,
Okay.
you know that, but you know what? The only way I get answers is by asking them one at a time. So go ahead.
I don't want to break any rules of the public meeting. So Dave, you please, you rule on that.
I want to address the first issue that he brought up. Just because you've gotten along, Roy, without certain positions does not mean that you worked effectively. And so what we're trying to do is work effectively so we can save money, because some positions will help us save money. So I just want to make sure you understand that.
I understand that, Donna, but you know what? I look at the comptroller's office, and listen, Ina's been really working her butt off. There's no question about it. But, you know, we're putting a position we didn't have before, but we're also spending a lot of money on CMA. That's $150,000 a year, or $120,000.
I have to stop you there. I have to stop you there. When you start talking about how my staff works and how overworked they are, and what CMA does and what a deputy city comptroller does, what you have to know that in the city of Long Beach, there is no succession plans. And so we are building succession plans. We are trying to be more effective. The deputy comptroller is already in the office and actually doing a very good job. So to say that unless you absolutely know what happens in each individual office and what each individual does and where we're trying to be more effective, I would appreciate that you not say that we do not hire additional staff to help us.
I didn't say that. I said Ina's working her butt off. I know she's working a lot. That's what I said, Donna. You know, I'm trying to save money. Okay. Now, we also have financial experts coming in. Do we have the money allocated, that 1.5 million yet?
That 1.5 million is the state is going to help us with that. So it's not in the budget. It is a pass through. And what they do has nothing to do with this operating budget.
Oh,
This
okay.
operating budget, the people that are coming in to help us restructure the debt that has been there for a long time and how it keeps mounting, especially since the Haberman decision.
Okay, well,
And
you know,
that's not
those are,
CMA is responsible for doing other things.
okay. I'm just looking, you know, it is still $105 million budget. And just looking at how we can cut it or what we can do, and we're still over the cap. Now, there are little things like we have a Department of Perpetual Inventory and Supply. I have no idea what that is, but we're spending $15,000 a year on travel expenses for them. What is that?
Okay, so again, I'm not sure how you want me to answer this. For now, I have 3 questions on the floor. First is I can address the question about the deputy city controller, address the question about the overtime, and address the question about the inventory department. So the fact that we hired another person in a department is not because Ina can now work less. It's because the size of the city and the complexity of the city and the systems at the city, decentralized nature of the city's operations require sufficient professional resources in its finance and accounting department. To not recognize it and to not do that would be negligent on my part. It was reported by the CMA. This was purely unacceptable, not to have a professional staff with the accounting degree and accounting background and experience. While controller's staff, existing staff, are amazing. They work very hard. They're very diligent, but all positions are clerical positions. And again, it would be purely negligent to just pretend that we can go on the way that we did before, because that would just bear the same results as we had before. And that's just the position of the deputy controller. As far as the overtime, I don't have specific resolutions right now, and I don't recall from the top of my head when exactly, but maybe in the last couple of months, the city had renewed a contract with the county of Nassau, where our assessor is doing some work for the county assessor's office. I don't know if Ray's on a call right now, so maybe if he is, he can contribute it. Okay, but that's actually the work that the city has been reimbursed for. My office has been monitoring the revenues in versus the overtime paid out. And as of now, we are much better than just breaking even on that. And I think you also asked me about the inventory. So as far as the inventory department, you have to give me 1 second. Please. So that was a central sort of buying for the city, and we're trying to move away from it this year. So perpetual inventory supplies for $23,000. I'll go from the most largest number in the 2022 budget. That's the supplies for the whole city, like clerical supplies for the whole city, and others. As you could see, all the travel, training, and safety equipment are now being removed from this department budget and allocated to the departments based on their request, because that provides for the better accountability and for everyone to see where the travel training actually takes place. So you would see that the travel and training budgets had increased in separate departments. That's the function of that central budgeting and central charging been eliminated.
That, is that explaining why they are spending 15,000? I don't understand that for travel. Is that department spending 15,000 for travel? Because that's
No,
only
I
in that
said it was
department.
central, that it was central. So if I, the city controller, would travel, my travel would be charged there
Oh, to the
in a
perpetual.
past. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. And I
that
also,
practice had been eliminated.
okay. And we're also paying 85,000 for credit card fees, but yet we charge extra fees for using the credit cards. How come we're paying so much for credit card fees?
How come we're paying so much for the credit card fees? We pay a percentage of transaction, and then a certain plus the certain amount on each transaction, plus a certain amount per month to be a part of the credit card mercantile activities. So that's just an expensive a way to accept payments, and we're where we can, we are trying to pass it on to the payers of whatever fees are being charged with the credit cards.
Don't we charge fees for every credit card transaction?
No, we don't.
How come? How come we
I
charge it for
believe
some and
we're
not?
not charging, we're not, when you come to the gazebo to purchase your seasonal beach pass and pay with the credit card, I don't believe that you're paying any extra. So for those payments that are received in-house, we are not charging extra. For those transactions that are done online, we do.
Okay, and also on the corporation council's budget, we have 800,000 in consultants and 5,000 for attorney's fees and 5,000 in overtime. Can you explain that one?
Reach, are you on a call?
Yep, I'm here.
Do you mind? I mean, I can probably try, but I think that it would be much better if it's gonna come directly from you.
Also for consultants, Mr. Lester, I mean, there are only 3 attorneys in this office currently, and we have a full caseload in addition to all the other things going on. So we need that consultants line to kind of bear some of the brunt unless we plan on restaffing this office, you know, to some small army of attorneys. As to the overtime, we have administrative staff now. One person's currently here helping us out, and there may be a projection where she may have to stay late on occasion to bring this office up to speed, because we're trying to digitize a lot of things and get our files in order. So that's just a projection.
3 attorneys, but we have a almost $600,000 cost.
We currently have 3 attorneys.
Okay.
Assuming a new corporation counsel is hired, we'll have 4.
And the 800,000 goes to different attorneys, or basically, I mean, how's that broken up? Do you know?
For consultants, Mr. Lester, it would be for outside counsel. So essentially, if we have, I don't know, if we have a case that can't be handled in-house, we'll have a pool of outside counsel to choose from and basically source it out that way.
And Mr. Lester, that is your time.
Okay. A lot more questions, but I guess I'll wait for next time.
Oh, I'm
Oh, John,
talking and
you're
just
muted.
realized I was muted. Who's next, Dave?
Brian Wells.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the resolution, remembering the fallen police officers. I'm sure it meant a lot to my members. I would also like to discuss the budget. The proposed budget calls for the elimination of 2 detective positions, bringing it from 8 this year to 6 next year. Traditionally, those 2 spots have been held by the Narcotics Task Force. Doing away with these 2 detective spots is nothing less than a defunding of the LBPD Narcotics Task Force. The idea that general service detectives will be able to conduct the long-term, labor-intensive investigations necessary to achieve meaningful arrests and convictions for narcotics offenses is not practical. Narcotics investigations require the careful cultivation of informants, days and nights of surveillance to identify drug-prone locations, methods of transportation, distribution, and the individuals involved. Also essential is the precise coordination with federal, state, and county agencies, social media-based investigations, the investigation of prescription medication diversions, and the ability to quickly recognize overdose trends. All of these were previously done by the Long Beach Narcotics Task Force. To state that general services will be able to perform these tasks on a part-time basis in addition to their already heavy caseloads is not accurate. The department was forced to suspend the task force's operations last year due to a wave of retirements that cut the number of Long Beach detectives from 8 to 4. Before then, the task force had been active since 1988. This is yet another drastic change to the police department's deployments and strategies and clearly falls under the purview of Executive Order 203. The consideration to defund such an important unit should have been done in consultation with the stakeholders and submitted to the public for feedback. Having been to more opioid overdoses than I care to discuss, I firmly believe that the residents of this city would not have approved the reform plan that contained this measure. I would ask you all to please reconsider this matter carefully and think about the people you know who have been affected by the opioid epidemic that has destroyed so many lives. Enforcement is not the only way to combat this continuing crisis, but is certainly an essential part of the struggle. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Commissioner, you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Just to add some clarity to some of the comments that were just voiced. Yeah, I agree that the detective division was hit with regard to retirements that did take place. We did reassign or promote 2 detectives from where we had 4 detectives, now we have 6. And after the beginning of the fiscal year, and when we can settle out a few of the other things that need to be settled out, we will be promoting a detective sergeant back into the ranks. What Mr. Wells doesn't know is that just this week we had the ASAC of the Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA, in the offices with the head of our detective division, as well as with some of the other executive staff. And we were discussing how we could go forward with our involvements with the Drug Enforcement Task Force on a much larger scale within the city. We're trying to work out some of the finer details there. But as you know, the city is under extreme financial constraints. We're on the pace when I came here to spend about $1.7 million in overtime. We've managed to curtail some of that with the cooperation of the union, trying to work with some reassignment of some people. So while we don't have 8 detectives right now, we are focusing on ensuring that we have as many police officers as we can assigned to patrol cars in the city and to other enforcement, and as well as other types of conditions cars, so that we can ensure that we're addressing all the needs of the city. And we have had cases come in with regards to narcotics, and our detectives right now are working on them and doing just fine. So rest assured, residents of Long Beach, that we're addressing every need of the city and ensuring that the city is safe. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dave. Ron, and Brian, and who's next, Dave?
Okay, next is going to be Kevin Heller.
Okay. You're still muted, Kevin. There you go.
Well, Dave was in control of that, so
Okay.
there I
Oh,
go.
sorry.
No problem. Well, I know I'm speaking out of turn a little bit, but I first wanted to offer my condolences to Commissioner Walsh on the loss of his father. And of course, recognizing the sacrifices of law enforcement is to me a no-brainer. So thank you for that. I understand from Ina's earlier presentation and from last public budget hearing that some of the positions some of us questioned were in fact added during the last fiscal year. So they weren't in the last fiscal year budget, but then they were added. So they're budgeted for this year. To me, that just opens up a new question, which is more broad and more general. Obviously, a budget is just an estimate of what we're going to spend going forward, but should the city find it necessary in the coming fiscal year to add positions or give raises that weren't budgeted for? What is the process for that? Does the city manager have full discretion on that? Does it come to the city council? Does department heads have full discretion on that? Maybe you could just enlighten the public on what's the process to sort of add positions and give raises during the fiscal year that were not previously budgeted for.
I'll start, Ina. So if there was once we decide that there is a position that the city needs, Ina and I talk about it. We have money in the, what's the fund, Ina?
General fund, water fund, sewer fund, it depends.
Money set aside, just as we talked about in the last budget hearing, where we have.
Contingency.
What'd you say?
Contingency, you mean contingency?
Right. We have money in the contingency fund for raises to bring people up to the minimum wage. And so once we determine that there is a position like the deputy comptroller's position, it is discussed with the city council. I don't do anything, although I have the privy, I don't do anything without talking to the council so that they can talk to their constituents if a question is asked. And then we talk about the salaries. And then when we give people raises, we make sure that all of the raises are in line and as well as whatever the offering salary is. So it's a joint effort.
Okay, thank you. Just one other question I have, and it's a little bit of a follow-on to Roy Lester's question about the retainer fees we agreed to pay the two firms to consult us on the restructuring. Has the state already agreed to pick up that 1.5 million, or are we assuming that there's a high probability that they will?
A little, probably more of a high probability. However, our stakeholders in the states that represents us are fighting very hard. And matter of fact, we have conversations with the state on an ongoing basis about where we are. So they know exactly what we need. And we were told just to move ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Who's next, Dave?
William Doepper.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Doepper.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I just have a question about the new proposed fees for the beach passes and beach access. Because I noticed it was in the Long Beach Herald, but they don't say anything about senior pricing. It just has from ages 18 to 61.
I can tackle this one. From the senior passes are $20 for a season pass. So
And
it's
disabled as well?
what's that?
The disabled as well?
I don't know if we have specifically. Oh, okay. Ina just said yes. So they're very inexpensive for the season.
Okay, because they didn't have that price in here, so I was wondering. And also, I have a lot of police in my family, so I definitely commend them. But also with last week being National Nurses Week, those are the ones I really commend, especially being a survivor. Other than that, I really have nothing else to say, except I couldn't figure out, like this time last year, you were laying off a lot of people, yet you gave yourself raises, and then you rehired some of the people that you laid off. I just can't figure that out. Can anyone explain that?
I'm not, I mean, you asked a question last time about the people that were laid off, and we told you we brought people back. We had to lay them off because of COVID. and we had to close down the recreation center. And there was no place for them to work. And then as we start to open back up, we brought people back. Some came back, some did not. But as other positions, as people retired, and we offered jobs to people to come back. The raises themselves, I'm not quite sure, because why you're comparing the raises to the people that were laid off, because the people were not laid off just to be laid off. It was COVID. So
Okay.
yeah, that.
I understand now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks. All right, Dave, who's next?
That was it.
That was it. Okay. I just want to make one like kind of general comment, because there seemed to be a theme about some of the new positions and some doing things different ways. There's an old saying, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We are trying to fix a mess here. And that means bringing in sometimes the right people with the right skill sets to help us fix that mess. I mean, I think there's general consensus bringing Donna in, a professional city manager with a lot of financial experience, and having Ina with all her financial experience has been a great benefit to the city. That is how we fix things. We bring the people in with the right skill sets to help us fix things, which in turn saves us money in the long term. So we're not doing the same stupid things we did before. So I just think that's important to point out. It's, if you want to keep doing things the way that it used to be done and the city keeps going down the same path, I guess that's up to you, but we're here to fix things, and that's what we're doing. So with that, okay. I see
Hi,
Councilman Delory.
Can I just add something to that, just to piggyback on what you said? Throughout the year, I know I've annoyed the controller and the city manager for questions. They're basically more financial questions. And what I realized is that the only one or two now that could answer these questions was Ina or Donna. And rather than overload them because they have a lot of other work, it became apparent to me that there was a need for another level of type of person in the controller's office. And when you deal with finances and numbers, and Karen knows this, and anybody that deals with numbers, you really need to do a lot of digging and find out where the data comes from. Is it proper? Are we undercharging? Are we properly charging? Are we managing effectively? In the prior hearing and the discussion about the fees, we realized, based upon Mr. Kemmons' work and Mindy, that we were undercharging in some cases, hadn't raised fees since 91 and sometimes later. So there's a balance, and that requires a lot of work for people to do to gather that research. So my point is, when you spend money the right way, you get a good return on that investment. And that's all I wanted to say. And by the way, amazing to me that you've lowered the tax rate as much as you have based upon this presentation. I'm very happy, and thank you for the hard work. That's all I have to say.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Teamwork.
Yeah, well, like I said, that's the difference between maintaining the status quo and actually taking action to actually fix things. And that's what we're doing. We're fixing things. So with that, I will, since there was no one else, I will close the hearing. And I guess we can have a motion to close the meeting.
Do I have a motion to close the meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Second,
I will.
voting, Councilmember Delory,
Yes.
It's going to drag the meeting out.
Councilmember Mandel,
Yes.
Councilmember Treston,
Yes.
Vice President McGinnis,
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes. All right. Thanks for joining us, folks. And we will see you at the next meeting. So everyone have a good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.